Exclusion and Inclusion in Student-Faculty Informal Interaction, A Critical Perspective by Shannon Anderson, EDU 534. What does the researcher set out to do? The researcher sets out to determine informal relationships between the teacher and student while focusing on relationships between different groups such as class, race, and gender. The researcher also focuses on the relationship and student achievement in school. Does the relationship determine how a child will be in school? The paper begins by briefly examining the ideas that were used to guide the study, and then describes its methods and findings by examining if teachers and student relationships are affected by one's race, class, and gender. Why does the researcher feel that it is relevant? The researcher feels that it is relevant so one can determine if a child will be more successful in school based on their interaction in a class placement with their teacher. The study finds that in self-perpetuating cycle, students who are more likely to be successful in university are also the students who have a high frequency of interactions with faculty, increasing their chances of academic success even further and strengthening their structural position of advantage. Critical theories of education. Theories tend to focus on the dynamics on reproduction, which include situations where teachers' expectations of a student are based on their criteria rather than ability. It is argued that most educational institutes, through formal and informal practices and policies, tend to reinforce socioeconomic structures of domination. Students are believed to be treated differently in terms of attention depending on their class, race, or gender. What research has discovered? Research on classroom interactions suggests a correlation between teachers' expectations of students' performance and actual students' performance. In a formative study, RIST observed kindergarten, first, and second grade children in a poor Black urban school to determine how teachers decide their students' academic potential. He found that judgments were made about the academic ability of the children and the tracks in which they were placed, and they were not based on their real abilities, but rather on non-academic characteristics such as the child's physical appearance, interactive behavior, use of language, and known social status. Once students were labeled, a self-fulfilling prophecy began to operate, and performances met expectations. In the research, it was found that teachers were more likely to call on boys than on girls, and to take more time responding to a question from a boy than from a girl. Achievement in college. It is assumed that educational institutions are not neutral, and play a role in fostering differential achievement among students. This differential achievement is, at times, the result of planned intervention. At other times, it is the unintended result of institutional and personal dynamics. Students who are less likely to interact with professors during their undergraduate years were those with below average self-ratings. On the other hand, those with high academic self-ratings were most likely to have worked on a professor's research project, have faculty take personal interest in their progress, or be a guest at the professor's home. This indicates that students are more likely to be successful in the university and are also the students who are interacting more with faculty, increasing even furthering their chances of academic achievement. How is the research similar to what we learned in the course? I find more similarities between the research and material from the course than I do differences. When people describe the teachers who had the greatest impact on them, they invariably describe ones who were caring, passionate about what their subject was, and good at getting them to do their very best. Stewart, 2012, page 97. Teachers are the single biggest in-school influences on student achievement. Stewart, 2012, page 98. The course and research have both taught us more about the advantages of having teachers who are more interactive and personable with their students and have a passion for what they are doing. How the research is different than the material we learned in the course. I do not feel that the research takes into differences in teacher training or the number of students in the classroom. Having a large number of students makes it difficult to form a relationship with every person and may make the qualities that label a child stand out more than those that don't. In Finland, we learned that Finnish schools tend to be small and have high levels of responsibility for curriculum planning, student progress, and assessment, and the autonomy and status that they enjoy in a school. School environments such as overcrowding and morale can play a factor in student and teacher relationships, and I feel that the research didn't touch base on any of this. So say you're in a school where you don't like your job and you feel stressed out, it's going to be harder for a teacher to form a relationship among the students in the classroom when they're not really caring about what they're doing. My personal thoughts and reflections. I personally found this article to be interesting in the aspects of race, gender, and class being a factor in relationships with a teacher. I was aware that socioeconomic status and one's personal life can have an effect on how children grow and develop, which ultimately affects how successful they are in school. What surprised me is the relationships that teachers develop with students based on these characteristics. As a teacher, I do tend to gravitate towards certain students more than others, but I never considered race, gender, or class to possibly be a factor in my relationships with certain students.